Shalom, shalom, shalom to everyone watching. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, coming to you directly from Pompano Beach, Florida. And I just wanted to take this moment to thank everyone, each one of you who have contributed to our organization, Ways of Israel, Los Caminos Israel. And of course, we are still a little bit short for this month, and encourage you to put the Ways of Israel, Los Caminos de Israel, as part of your giving plan. And right below on the sidebar here, you'll see the information how you can make a donation of any size to the Ways of Israel, Los Caminos Israel. And again, I want to thank many of you. I'm not going to mention the names, but I have a list of people who have already received their receipt via PayPal and other means. And I want to thank you. Thank you for supporting the Ways of Israel. Continue to do so as we delve into today in the Sefer Ikkarim, and we're now in chapter 2, actually chapter 23 of book number 2, so we're going to go right into it this morning. Now, we're looking at Rabbi Albo, Joseph Albo, and of course we're doing the series in memory of a good friend of mine who passed away over a year ago, George Albo, who always had a joke or had something to say that would make people laugh. A very, very humorous spirit, to say the least. And those of you who knew him as he worked as a mashgiach for the ORB, as well as worked a lot with David Mizrahi there at Mizrahi Pizza in Hollywood. An incredible person was George, no doubt about it. He influenced and touched the lives of many, many, many people. And of course, his descendants are from the Albo of Spain, and we would talk a lot about that. And this is the work of his descendant, Joseph Albo, and that's why I'm doing this in memory of Joseph Natan Yehuda, who basically is George Albo. So, and you'll see in some of the audio or videos that I posted up, I'll have his picture on there on some of the actual series. In others, I'll put the book page of the Sefer Ikkarim for those of you who are learning. Now let's go to chapter 23 this morning, because Rabbi Albo begins to delve into the idea of attributes which are ascribed to God, that are not based upon his acts, like one eternal, true, and so on. It cannot, according to the philosopher, be viewed and be ascribed to him except in a negative way, as we have explained in relationship to the attributes of one and eternal. The same thing applies to the attribute of true. The meaning of this attribute is, as we shall see, one of the existence does not depend upon anything, not himself. But these attributes cannot be applied to God in a positive sense, because those attributes which are predicated of God as he is in himself, if taken in a positive sense, far from being appreciative, are rather derogatory in relationship to or relation to God, and are not of the class of attributes which are becoming to him, as Maimonides says. He cites this connection with the word of Rabbi Hanina, who, hearing a person employ many attributes in his prayers, used to following the comparison. A king who had thousands upon thousands of gold dinars was praised for his wealth, which was estimated at 1,000 upon thousands of silver dinars. You can imagine how much that's worth nowadays, especially considering today's economy. But this praise was surely, in the king's estimation, derogatory. And it will be noticed that he does not say that they estimated his wealth at 1,000 gold dinars. Just the opposite. In that case, the derogation would be due to the fact that the moment of attributed to him was less than the actual amount. But he says that they attributed to the king the silver dinars, indicating that the difference between the praise and reality was not one of decree but of kind. As silver, though valuable, does not belong to the same species as gold. And this is the reason Maimonides says that all of the attributes which are not derived from God's acts must be understood as a negative and not a positive, as we have explained in chapter 10 of this book 2 in relations to the attribute 1. The reason we must refrain from using attributes of our own invention, not employed by Moses and the prophets, and even those that are used by them, we must understand are merely metaphorical, and when used positively, in reality they only have a negative sense. According to the attributes applied to God are two kinds. First, those which describe his own nature, which is absolutely unknown even to the wise. These can not be understood in a positive sense, not to speak of being expiated upon. The other kind are those attributes which are derived from the acts of God, and these meaning of attributes is known to all, even to fools and ignoramus, as it says in the psalmist, as the psalmist says, "Consider ye brutish among the people, and ye fools, and will ye understand? He that planted the ears, shall he not hear? He that formed the eyes, shall he not see?" The same is true in the manner of which God governs his creatures. These aspects of God we may expatiate upon them, or expatiate upon them. And David, in the 103rd Psalm, alludes to both kinds of divine praise. He says twice, "Bless the Lord, O my soul," in allusion to two kinds of praise that we mentioned, referring to the praise which attaches to God as he himself. The psalmist says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name." The meaning is, my soul bless the Lord with brevity of praise that befits him. In the view of the excellence of his nature and his holy name himself, as to this, one must not multiply words, no, one must not even pronounce them with their lips unless he understands them in a negative sense. Hence, the psalmist expresses himself briefly, without any explanation. The expression, "all that is within me, bless his holy name," signifies the praise which is becoming to him in the view of the excellence of his holy name, which is ineffable. An allusion to the second mode of praise, which is derived from his acts, from the goodness which emanates from him, and from the manner in which he governs his creatures. He says a benefit, and he enumerates at length the kindness received from God, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who redeemeth thy life from the pit. Now, interesting enough, we think that as a result of King David's words, the idea of forgiving a person without the need of putting their faith in a human being was never seen as part of a process of expiation of sin. And yet, here we see that God is seen even before the emergence of the other religion, that God is the one that forgives sin, who forgives all thine iniquities, who redeemeth thy life from the pit. This is from the very death, an allusion to attributes with which he governs his creatures, for 13 attributes which were revealed to Moses and are derived from the acts of God, by which he governs his creature, as it was said in the preceding chapter. These are attributes of mercy. Moses also described God with two kinds of attributes that we mentioned and praises him in the manner we described, alluding to the attributes which denotes God as he is in himself, and he says that he hesitates to use them in God's praise, but he uses freely and at length those attributes which represents God's act. This is why he says twice, "Who is like unto thee among the mighty?" An allusion namely to the two modes of praise, referring to the first, he says, "fearful in praises," and in reference to the second, he says, doing wonders. This then he expatiates at length upon the second. Thou stretchest out thy hand, thou hast guided them in strength. To obviate notion that those attributes which is permitted to ascribe to God, and with which he may be praised on the basis of his acts, are also to be considered in the same way as when they are ascribed to man. And he says in the beginning of the song, "And I will sing unto the Lord," as if to say, all praises which are mentioned are to be understood as an expression of poetic style, which is an exercise of the imagination and does not describe reality. By the way of poetic license, I will describe God with attributes to afford the senses a point of support. And therefore he says, "A man of war, as in the greatness of thine excellency, and with the blast of thy nostril thou sendest forth wrath, and thy right hand, O Lord, dashes into pieces the enemy." In reality, however, it is impossible to ascribe any attributes to him, even one that is based upon his acts, even in the manner in which we ascribe it to human beings. For he is highly exalted, quote unquote. The meaning is, I speak of him in poetic style, but in reality he is highly created above all kinds of praises or praise. The most fitting praise, therefore, in the case of God is the silence, as David says, "For thee silence is praise." Let me repeat that. For thee silence is praise. Rabbis understood it in the same way when they say the most wholesome recipe of all is silence. As it says, for thee silence is praise. And therefore Moses called him fearful in praise. And here Rabbi Albo summarizes one of the attributes that's ascribed that is a negative to God. And we're going to take a look in chapter 24 in our next video, something more, which he seems to have two kinds of attributes, or God does, and which is characterized, and we're going to take a look at that in our next video. And I want to thank you for being with us in this morning in this short lecture or teaching based on the work of Rabbi Joseph Albo, one of our great rabbinical thoughts of Spaniard Jewry. And this is why there is an awakening throughout Judaism, throughout the world, over Sephardic teaching, particularly those of the Spanish and Portuguese community. And thus, if you want to be connected with these customs, feel free to join us at the Ways of Israel, because we're always, you might say, pumping out new videos and new teachings regarding and connected to this ancient community in Spain and Portugal. So may God bless you this morning, and may God shine his face upon you with goodness and blessings and grace. And remember, do what is right before God and before men. And this way you'll be able to receive God's grace, which is incredibly abundant. Shalom, shalom, and remember, be part of the Ways of Israel. Join right up here in the group and give. One way you can change your life and the life of others is by practicing tzedakah, which is charity. Do it today and see how Hashem begins to bless your life in so many different ways. You begin to realize truly what they said is true. That if I give, God gives back 100-fold. Shalom, shalom, and a lot of bracha to you and to your family.